Back in the day when your average 19-year-old North American kid was spending time with friends, going out to eat, watching movies, attending parties, and shopping for the next best deal, my guest in this episode purchased a business and has been operating a very successful dance and fitness studio for the past 27 years. This is Deep Dive Creatives. Meet Janey Jefferson.
I told them to do that, and they're doing it, and it looks really cool.
Janey is the owner and operator of the Dance and Fitness Studio in Monmouth, Oregon. She is a dance instructor, a choreographer, a costume designer, a sewist, a theatrical director, a digital creator, a wife, a mother, and a dedicated and supportive person to those who are fortunate enough to call her a friend. And as with many of my guests on this podcast, creativity is the overarching theme of her life. Let's dive in as she shares her creative journey.
Could you talk to me a little bit about your creative journey?
I know, like when I first started here, I thought I I knew everything when I was 19 years old, and here I'm going to teach all these kids how to dance and put on these recitals and these shows, and I think just doing it and thinking I could brought me to a place where I could do it, and I've come a long ways since then, and so it's kind of been on the job training and learning as I go and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes and being able to just continually better myself. And I think with any creative journey, if you stop getting better, if you think I've reached the place where I'm perfect now, then you should just stop, because no one's perfect, and we can always get better.
So I'd like to back you up, because a weird thing that you just said, you started your own dance studio at 19. What in all of the universe made you think at 19, hey, I have what it takes to lead all these people and to teach them and to go into this?
I was very confident.
Where does that come from?
So I think I've just always been told, I can do things. So I didn't start the studio from scratch. I started dancing when I was very young. I think I was 6 when I started dancing, and then as I got older, like 10, the ripe old age of 10, I was homeschooled, and so I was available during school hours, and my teacher would invite me to come and be a demonstrator in the little kids classes, and so I would get to help teach, and so I learned how to be a teacher by helping, and then in my teen years, then I was given a class or two to take the lead on and be the teacher. And then when my first dance instructor sold her studio to another woman, and I came on as her apprentice, and so I was at the studio almost every day, and I was either helping with classes, I was teaching a class, I was working in the office, and I would, I'd make the deposit slips, and I would write the newsletters and just kind of take care of things in the office and just help out. So when she said, oh, my husband is getting transferred to Baker City, do you want to buy the studio? I was like, well, yeah, of course. Like, who else would buy the studio? Of course, I can do that. That's fine. And then I remember she and I met with my parents, and we kind of looked at things, and my dad was asking all these good questions. I'm sure they were good questions. And I was, super blessed that I was able to, she financed it for me, and so I didn't have to take out a loan or anything like that, and just made monthly payments to her until it was paid off. And I learned, I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. And then every year, I would learn new things. And something would happen, a parent would be upset about this thing. I'm like, okay, well, I guess we need to address that, and I would make it better for them for the next year.
How would you define creativity?
I've been thinking about that, and that's a really hard question, because I think creativity just in its definition can't be defined, because so many things can be creative. I'm creative with creating dances or creating costumes or directing a show, but I'm also creative in the way that I organize things backstage, or I'm creative in the ways that I use materials in non-traditional ways, and other people can be creative with creating podcasts or cooking in the kitchen, and I think that there's just no limit on creativity. And I think when we do start to limit ourselves, that's when the creativity stops.
How would you describe your creative process?
My creative process, even though I don't think of it as, okay, here's my process, but I always look at the end and what am I hoping that it will look like at the end. So if I'm creating a dance, what story do I want it to tell? What specific moves do I want it to have? If it's a younger ballet class, they need to show off these certain moves for their recital, or it needs to tell a story. And I just work backwards from there. Or if I'm creating a costume, what's the functionality of this costume? What do I need it to look like? What character is it going to be? And then again, work backwards from there. I like to get inspiration from either things I've done in the past, or the internet is full of ideas, and it's always fun to see what other people have created and see if I can get ideas from them, or ways to do things, like how am I going to create this quick change that has to happen in 3 seconds. And so I find different ways that other people have successfully created a similar thing, and then try to put my own spin on it.
What do you like best about the creative process?
I think the finished product, like looking at my work and saying, okay, wow, look what I did. It looks nothing like what I intended at the beginning, but I think actually it's better. But I really like it, that sense of accomplishment that I've finished this and I've done this, and then being proud of it and wanting to show it, not show it off, but show it off. I want people to see this and appreciate how beautiful it is, or how much work went into it, and just that feeling of accomplishment when it's done, and how I feel like it's like, wow, I did that. That's great. And there's times when I'll be watching my students do a dance, and or watching some choreography I've done on stage, and everyone's doing all this stuff, and I'm like, I told them to do that, and they're doing it, and it looks really cool.
What inspires you to work in your particular creative field?
I love what I do, and I do so much, and it all kind of overlaps. I love teaching. I love teaching people how to do things, or to do a dance, or how to do it. I like the instructing part of it, and I like. I just love it when they're excited about what they have done or what they have accomplished, either learned a new skill, or we're working on a formation and they finally get the weaving in and out, and they're so excited about it. But I just love that process of bringing it to people, because I think I don't like to work alone. It's not fun. I don't say it's not fun, because I do a lot of stuff alone. I choreograph alone, and I will sew costumes alone in my room. But bringing it to people and letting letting people share in that process, and having them be part of that final product is really exciting to me.
Are there any particular individuals that you get inspiration from?
I think the people that inspire me are people who are in similar positions that I am in, working with people, directing plays, or teaching children in a dance studio, or creating costumes. And so just the people in my life that I get to observe doing the same type of thing that I do is really inspiring. People like Jeremiah Price, you, this is Tamara, by the way, I don't know if people know that. And like other instructors at my studio are inspiring, because I see the work that they do, and it inspires me to be better. And I think that, if I'm working alone and in a vacuum, and there's no one keeping me accountable, then quality can dip. But seeing what other people are doing and thinking, oh, I could do that, or learning things that they're doing. And also, I guess, people around me that aren't doing as good a job as me, I can go, I don't want to make that same mistake, and I can learn from that and make my process better.
Mm-hmm. How do you overcome challenges in your work?
Sometimes I have a choreography block, and I just don't know what move to do with this music, or how I'm going to portray this story. And so in cases like that, I just, one thing I don't do first always, but I should, is pray, because I find that when I do pray, I'll get this creative inspiration. And it's funny sometimes how many things kind of work out, and I go, oh, that could only be God that made that work. But so yeah, praying, asking advice from other people, and I think, just again, logically, what's the problem and what do I need to do to fix that? So I think a lot of problems I have, if you call them problems, would be with owning a studio is the thing I like best is working with people, but then they can also be the biggest problem. And so, over the years, I have learned how to better communicate with parents, to let them know what's the process. You come to class, you try on a costume, they're learning their dance. This is their special rehearsal time, and this is what's going to happen when we're at the theater. And there's been years where parents didn't understand what was going on and got upset because this or that happened, and just learning what those potential problems could be and trying to stop them, mm-hmm. Address them before they're going to be an issue is, I think, something I've gotten good at. I have two friends who are also sewists, and we message each other all the time. Okay, this happened. How would you fix this? Or look what my machine is doing. Can we fix this? What should I do here? It's skipping stitches, or how would you attach this ruffle, or just little mm-hmm. things like that, and just learning from each other.
So most artists, their challenge is an internal thing. You mentioned a block, all that. But you, as a dance instructor, the people that you're teaching the dance to, you're kind of limited by them.
Yeah.
And I would be really curious to know, as a dance person who is trying to lead other people in a dance, what do you do when they're just not getting it? Or maybe they just can't even do the move that you have planned.
Yes.
So how do you adjust?
Yeah, absolutely. You always have to adjust. I'm thinking of specifically, there was a time this season where I had a class of students, and I think they're like third grade, and I wanted them, they were in two lines, and I wanted their lines to run toward each other, and then they needed to weave through each other. And so the first person had to go in front of this person, behind this person, in front of this person, and then this, and so they're weaving, and they just weren't getting it. And I tried explaining it a different way, and it would have been really easy to just get really frustrated and mad at them for not getting it. And I just have to constantly, remind myself that, it's my fault if they're not getting it, and I want to, it's my job to make sure that they're understanding. So, step back, take a breath, and reevaluate. Do I need to explain it differently? Am I just not explaining it well? Is it too hard for them? Do I need to modify the movement and do something different? Do their lines just run past each other and that will look just as nice? Or do we just kind of slow down and we have a couple weeks to work on this? And so, and that just depends on the class and my evaluation of it. And as it turned out, I remember going, all right, well, that's enough working on that for this week. And then we moved on. And then the next week we came back and we tried again. And, I slowed down, explained it differently, and they got it. And, it's always, and they were so excited because we had spent so much time working on it, and they were frustrated too, but, not to the point of like tears or anything like that. They knew that it wasn't quite what I had wanted them to do. But then when they finally got it, they were like, yay, we got it! And we cheered, and okay, let's do it again. Let's make sure we have it. And it's really exciting when they do finally get it. And I would say another example this season, I had an advanced point class, and we were recreating some famous point choreography, and they were doing a really good job with it, but there were just a couple places that wasn't, they just weren't strong enough to do the moves. And so we just changed a couple things so slightly, and it just boosted their confidence because it just made it attainable, and they were able to do it. And it was, it was super exciting. To be, it's exciting for them because they felt so much more successful just with that little change. So just recognizing that what needs to be changed.
How do you deal with creative dry spells?
A lot of my creativity is working towards a goal that has a certain deadline. So like I imagine an artist who's like, I'm just going to paint a picture, and they take however long to paint it, and then they're like, oh, I don't really know what I want to do, and they put it aside for a while, and then 2 days later, or a week later, or a year later, they come back to it. Oh, now I'm inspired. But working, teaching dance, we're usually working towards a dance recital at a certain time, or directing a play, and we open in 3 weeks. We have to get this done. And so I think I can't have those dry spells or those moments of, I don't know if they'd be considered a block or what, but I think taking a break as needed. Like, okay, I'm done choreographing for today, I'll come back tomorrow, but still understanding that deadline is there. If I'm choreographing something, I always like it to be my own stuff, but sometimes I need inspiration, and so I'll go on YouTube and look at videos and okay, we're doing a Celtic folk dance. Let me look at some videos of Celtic folk dancing and just be inspired, not necessarily to be like, ooh, I'm going to copy those exact moves. All right, they stepped with their left foot, now they stepped with their right foot, but just to get some inspiration, and then that can help.
What motivates you to keep creating?
I think the people involved. If I didn't have people to create on, then I wouldn't be able to create. And I just, again, I love people and I love teaching, and so I think that people are my motivation. So
you're also a dancer.
Yes.
I don't even know how to ask this question, but it's like you kind of put aside your own dancing to teach other people to dance. What about your own dancing desires?
So dancing myself, I mean, I love dancing, and I feel like I never want to, you never want to stop learning and furthering your own art. And I think that there's periods of my life where I'm really feeding my own dancing skills, and then there's times in my life when I'm imparting it on other people. And I think in the last several years, I have been doing a lot of directing and a lot of choreographing and a lot of teaching. And there's been a couple times when I thought, I wonder, maybe I want to be on stage again. And but like right now, that's not the season of life that I'm in. Whenever I look at what do I want to do next, I'm always in my younger years, I did a lot of performing, and I've kind of transitioned into being more behind the scenes lately. And there's been a couple times, like this last, just recently, this last recital, I had a student that had to drop out of class about 6 weeks before the recital because her mom had surgery and she couldn't come to class anymore. And we'd already set the dance, we'd already done all the formations, and so I decided to step in and dance with the class. It was a teen and adult tap class, so I fit in just fine, and so I got to dance with them, and it was really fun. It was really fun because I hadn't been in that performance capacity for a long time, and so I was able to do that, and it was different when it's hard to direct and perform at the same time, and so, but yeah, it's a completely different process when I'm, getting ready for a show and I'm directing and I'm running around and, all right, are the curtains closed, and do we remember that light cue, and you have your costume change where it needs to be. Whereas when you're performing, it has to be self-focused and, okay, I need to warm up my body and I'm going to run through the dance in my head. It's a completely different process. And it's one that's hard. It's hard to do both at the same time. And as I'm presented with new opportunities, it always lately in this season of my life, I'm behind the scenes and I'm directing, I'm choreographing, I'm making costumes, I'm teaching, rather than actually being on stage and performing myself.
Do you have a personal philosophy that governs your creative process?
I don't really have a philosophy that governs my process. I thought about this one, and I like creating. But I feel like if I had a philosophy, I'd be like Sally Brown, and it would change every 3 minutes. oh, that's a good one. Like, just trust the process. Yes, I'm going to trust the process. Oh, just seek advice. Yes, I'm going to seek advice. So, I don't know. I can't really nail it down to a...
Maybe another way to ask it is, why is creativity important? What drives you to keep... Why do you think it's significant for people to come and learn how to dance? Is it just a way for you to make money?
Right. Yeah, no, it's not.
Why do we even do plays? What's the point of that?
Okay, yeah. I think what the main reason to be creative, to do this, why do I teach dance? Why do I want people to come to my studio and learn how to dance? Or why do I want to direct a group of high schoolers on a stage and teach them choreography for their spring musical? Is, again, it comes to people and it comes to community, and it's a way to be together. And I mean, people need people, and if we can enhance each other's lives in that way, and being together in the rehearsal space, and let's work together. Let me teach you what I know, and it's fun. It's moving your body to music is is lots of fun, and it keeps you in shape, and has so many health benefits. And I like being able to impart that on my students or on the people that I'm blocking on stage.
Okay. Do you have any creative goals?
Like anything I want to do in the future? It's funny because I just kind of keep doing what I'm doing, and God gives me new opportunities. I first started at 19 years old teaching dance at a dance studio, and then I auditioned for a musical, and I got in as a dancer. I'm like, this is really fun. And then the director the next year said, well, I need someone to choreograph our musical the next year. Are you interested? I didn't have a goal like I someday want to choreograph a musical. I was just offered that opportunity, and I said, well, sure, I'll give it a try. I've never done it before, and it was a lot of fun, and I really liked doing it. And then I choreographed a couple of musicals, and was still doing the studio, and then a local drama program at our local church opened up, and I said, oh, that sounds fun. I'd like to do that. And so I joined that, and they said, oh, you're a choreographer. Okay, would you like to choreograph? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And so started doing that. And then the next year through that program, I was asked if I would costume. And I was like, well, I'm not a costumer. And the director said, well, you've been costuming dance recitals for 15 years. I'm like, well, I think that's different. And I've only sewn quilts before. I've never sewn I've sewn a couple clothes, but, and he said, well, I don't have anyone else who can costume, so will you do it? And I was like, okay, well, I guess I will. And a couple years later, it was interesting because this director and I were talking, and he said, in professionals, I was directing and choreographing, I was choreographing and doing costumes. And he said, in the professional theater world, you don't do two jobs. You are the costumer, you are the director, you are the set builder. You don't, community theater, everyone kind of dabbles in everything. And he goes, I really don't know if I would want you to choreograph or costume for me if I was directing a show and I got to choose my team. And I was like, really? Wow. And that, was big to me, because, I thought of myself as a dancer and a choreographer, and that he says, I don't know, I'd love you to choreograph, but also love you to costume. And so I never, and now I costume for Corban University, and I costume for Central High School. And even 5 years ago, I wasn't thinking, okay, now I've owned a dance studio and I've choreographed a musical, and now I want to be a costumer. I didn't think that was what I was aiming for, and it just kind of fell in my lap, and I really, have enjoyed it. And so I think being open to what God has planned, and just being willing to follow his lead and do that. So looking ahead, I'm not, I love where I am right now, and I don't know what God's gonna bring and say, okay, now I want you to, I don't know.
Take over the world.
Take over the world. I hope not.
What do you think are threats to creativity?
Well, I suppose some threats to creativity, just sometimes there are things that in my line of work have to be done rather than things I want to do. So do I want to hem those pants because they're too long? Like, that's not a fun thing to do, but it just has to be done. And do I want to glue these headpieces together? Like, that just has to be done. It's not a fun thing. Or once, if I'm creating something, like say I'm creating a costume for a class, and I've designed it and created it, and okay, there it is. Now I have to make 5 more. And it's just the same thing. It's just making it again, and it doesn't feel as it's not as rewarding because I'm not creating something new. It's just okay, this piece has to be duplicated again. So I think that just sometimes that can just be mundane, and not feel creative, and sometimes I think, why am I doing this? Because it's just a little something that has to be done.
Mm-hmm. At the very beginning, you mentioned how at 19 you did something that most 19-year-olds don't do, and you said, I was just confident. I felt like I could do it. Do you see in the generation that you're working with now, do you see that same level of confidence in kids, or do you feel that part of the challenge to getting people to create is helping them to believe that they're capable of it?
Yeah.
And if so, what do you do to overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for sure that I think that people are taking a little bit longer to grow up these days, that it's taking our brains a little bit longer to mature, and that's probably because of screens. People are on screens all the time, and so I don't see, the young dancers that come through the studio that are 18, 19, 20, and I look at them and go, wow, I can't believe I was their age when I bought my studio. I don't think that they could be doing that right now. But I see that, and I also want to foster in my students a sense of accountability and a sense of ownership in different things. I try to make them responsible for their costume changes, or make them responsible for a younger group of dancers. I think a big part is just a sense of ownership in their performance that will transfer over into their lives. If they're going to be responsible for the things in the classroom, that they'll be responsible in their lives.
Mm-hmm. As I'm listening to you, I'm wondering, when we asked about threats to creativity, I wonder if a lack of confidence is a threat to creativity. I don't think you could have ever done what you have done if you didn't have that innate confidence that you brought to the table. And you had the confidence because people invested in you and built you up and equipped you along the way. Do you have anything that you could talk about that would be helpful for people who are wanting to pass on creativity, the ideas of creativity, to inspire it in others? What would you encourage them to do to make that happen?
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to mind is just to come alongside other people and let them work with you, and let them, even if they don't do things the way that you would do it, and it's not as good as you could do it, or so you think, just letting people help, and letting them make the mistakes in a safe environment so that they can learn from those mistakes. I think I'm a very controlling person, and I like to do everything myself, and that can burn me out sometimes. And so it's a process for me to learn to let other people help me, even if I feel like, I don't know, it's not gonna look as good. But I think other people should have a chance to be part of the creative process. And every year for our recitals, there's always things that need to be done. We need to make 12 kitty ear headbands, or we need to make this this prop, or whatever it is. And they're all those little things that I don't, they're not high skill. They're not things that I have to do personally. And so I put it out there, who can help me with this? Who can iron this dress? Who can do this? And people come out and help with that kind of thing. And they're always, sometimes it's people who like, I've never done it. I could glue something on. I don't sew, but I could glue this on, or I can do this and that and the other thing. And they really enjoy helping and being part of it. And then of course it helps me too, because then I don't have to do all these little mundane things. But again, it's training people to be helpful and to be able to have ownership in the process. And even though it's just a really small thing, that one person who got to make the kitty cat headbands, when she sees them on stage, I made those headbands. And then, they're really excited to have been part of that, of that process.
What words of creative inspiration can you share with us?
I would say just keep trying new things, and you just never know. You never know what you can do until you try it. And if I heard someone say once that anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And he says, no one's good at it the first time that they do it. But as he pointed out, that doesn't stop babies from learning how to walk. The first they don't. If we stood up and fell down and said, well, I guess walking's not for me, I'm not gonna do it, then that would be silly. Like we just keep trying. And so it's worth it to do something badly. And I think a lot of people feel like they have to do everything perfect the first time, and there's a lot of pressure to be exactly right, or to do something exactly the right way. But we're not going to be perfect the first time. We're not going to be perfect the 100th time. But that shouldn't stop us from continuing to reach out and keep doing new things.
Follow-up question with that. So are you saying that creativity and end product are two different things?
I think so. So
is this worth doing even if the end product always is not that great?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And the more you do the thing, hopefully eventually that end product gets better and better and better. But if you don't start, you're never gonna get there. My first dance recital, which was in 2020, I look back at the video of that and go, oh, what was I thinking? that was terrible. Why did I choose to do that? And now, I will probably look back at videos of this year's recital and go, okay, I almost got it. Let's, but yeah, you just have to, and we look at our child's, our 3-year-old child who scribbles on a page with a crayon, and we're like, well, that's easy. I could do that. We don't say that to them. We're like, that's wonderful. That's great. And then you keep working on it. You keep honing your skills, and you get better and better. And eventually that end product is more and more amazing.
We tend to interview people who have successfully done creative things. What about the average individual? What would you say to that person? Is it worthwhile to, if I have no goals to ever become good at some sort of art form, is there any value to me being involved in creating something?
Yeah.
What's the point of creativity in a normal person's life?
Yeah.
You're not normal.
Okay, thank you. Normal's just a setting on your dryer. That's
exactly
what I heard. Yes. I heard a stat one time that said if you practice something for 10 minutes every day, you'll be better at that thing than, I think it was better than 90% of the world. Because most people don't practice that. And I was like, I could practice piano for 10 minutes a day and be better than 90% of the people in the world. Now, don't quote me on those stats. I don't know. It was a really low number of minutes a day, and it was a really high number of things. And I think that sometimes people do think that there's an all or nothing in creativity. or with anything in life. It's all or nothing, and it doesn't have to be. And I have adult beginners coming to my studio all the time. They either took ballet when they were 7 years old for a year or two, and they want to do it again. And they're not going to be a professional ballerina. They're probably not going to get point shoes, but just the personal enrichment that it adds to your life is worth it. And you don't have to be perfect. And if we compare ourselves to other people, then obviously we're never going to be happy. But if you take a dance class and think you're going to be as good as Fred Astaire, then you're going to be, very disappointed. But this is bringing to mind. I don't consider myself like an artist. I don't paint and draw and things like that. But I went to an art class one time at the Ash Creek Arts Center, and the class was like drawing caricatures. And so they had pictures of famous people, and they said, all right, here's what you do. And I drew this picture of Fred Astaire, and it was pretty good. And I was like, that's really cool. And it was fun, and I enjoyed doing it. And I was like, well, maybe I can draw. And I think I drew some more a little bit. And do I draw now? No, like sometimes a little bit, but it's just not something I do. But, going to take that art class was enriching in my life, and it made me realize that I could do something that I didn't really see myself as, like, oh, I'm not an artist. But I was like, oh, I guess I can do this a little bit. Or I could see it for baking. Like, if people think I'm not a baker, well, go find a new recipe and try it, and you're gonna every time that we succeed in something, our brain learns that we can succeed. And when I see my students of any age or any level practicing and working and getting something, then it's just really rewarding to see that their pride in what they have done. And we're not trying to make someone a professional dancer. We just want them to have a good time and enrich their lives. Like, I think of our motto at the studio is providing students of all ages the skills to enjoy dance for a lifetime. And we want people to have a good time and